Okay. You guys can all smile because you're on camera now. Let me zoom out. So first, it's good to see many of you that I've now been here long enough that I'm seeing former students, so that's nice. It's good to see that you're still here and ready to student teach. We have some problems in this room when it comes to videotaping, right? One of the problems was already partially solved by Wanda. What did she do? Yeah, closing the blinds. If you're going to take a video, and you notice in the video that Stacy just took, or showed you, that you couldn't see the windows in that video. They weren't in the shot at all. She wasn't near the windows. She was avoiding windows. Now, that's partly classroom design, and that's great if you're in a classroom where that naturally happens. If not, if you're in a room like this, you might have to do a few things. So, where I'm videotaping you right now, I don't have to deal with video, or windows. I don't have to deal with natural sunlight, and that's good. Because if we have natural sunlight coming behind me, and I'm videotaping from there, looking forward, what's that going to do to me? It will wash me out. I'll be silhouetted. You won't really be able to distinguish me very well. Which might not be the end of the world. It depends on what you're trying to get in your clip. But better than that is we can position the video. So now if I'm up here talking to you guys, it's showing our interaction. It's showing you guys here, and it's showing me interact with you, and it's a better angle, right? Now it is somewhat dark in here, so if this was my classroom, I'd flip at least one light on because we don't need it to be that dark in here. But windows are a big deal when it comes to taking good video. Samantha asked earlier, well, what do you take the video on? You can take it on whatever you want, and what I recommend is if you are setting up the video yourself, if you're not having someone do that for you and man the camera, you do whatever you're most comfortable with. For most of you, that will be your phone, probably. So if you're used to taking video on your phone or on your iPad, use your phone or your iPad. The only downside to using a device like that is the microphones usually aren't very awesome. So you would have to be close enough to your phone that it would pick you up. Now on something like this isn't too drastically different from a phone or an iPad. The microphone is on the camera, right? So if I'm standing right here and I'm having a conversation with you, it's going to pick me up really well, but is it going to pick you up really well? Not so much. So there's a few things you can do about that. One, you could position the camera more central into the class, which I think actually works really well, because if you're trying to get an interaction between a teacher and a student, you don't want backs of heads, you want sides of heads, so you can see the teacher and the student. So if we set it up right here, coming over, you would see me talking and we would see you talking. It's also going to be central to both of us, so the audio will be pretty decent. If that's not going to be possible, if you're setting it up in the back of the classroom at an angle or something like that, for the most part, it doesn't matter, because if the audio is a little quiet, that's one thing you can do in edTPA is adjust the volume. So you can't edit your video, but you can make those kinds of adjustments that aren't going to alter the video. So you can even get rid of white noise if you want to get into a fancy software program and minimize the white noise. That is okay. I don't think very many of you will do that, and there's not going to be a huge need to do that, but you can. So I would not be worried about the quality of your phone or of your camera, because it's going to be good enough. The bigger issue is how you're taking the video, what you're shooting, the kinds of interactions that you're shooting, and things like that. So you do want to make sure that you've set it up in advance, and like Stacy mentioned in hers, the best way you can do this is you shoot videos multiple days. You try it out from different angles, see where the lighting's the best, and if you're just rolling random video and not even intending to use it, you can watch that in advance and learn a lot about how to videotape in that particular classroom at that time of the day, and that's going to be really, really useful for you. Now I'm actually going to set this video up in a few different places because we're going to edit some video today, and I want you to see the difference between the different angles and how we do it. We're going to crop our video. In edTPA, how much video do you use? You guys remember? 15 minutes. How many clips? Two. You can do it in one continuous clip, or you can do two. Now the good news about that is if you videotape several times, then you have a lot to choose from, right, in coming up with those 2 clips. So even if you had intended on doing a particular segment and it rolls into something else, that video is going to be valuable for you. It's going to give you something usable. And it might alter what you decide to ultimately showcase in your edTPA. Other videotaping strategies. If you have someone manning your camera, so you absolutely can ask someone in your classroom to be behind, and if you're walking around, they can follow you and things like that. There are a few rules when it comes to panning and zooming and headhunting and things like that. One, if you are moving the camera, always move it slowly. There's a tendency, especially if someone's holding a camera, it's going to be shaky by design if you're holding it. So if at all possible, use a tripod. We have a few that you can check out with our iPads here. And then we have like a tripod like this if you have a normal camera. So we have a few that you can get here at the ETC. You just ask them at the desk for either a Gorilla Pod for your phone, so you just screw your phone into it. Those work really great. You can just set it on a desk. You can prop an iPad on a desk, but that's not quite as good as having a tripod. Or you can use a traditional tripod. If someone's holding it, it's going to be shaky. There's image stabilization on a lot of phones and cameras now, so that helps a little bit. But it's not like on YouTube where you upload it and it says, this is really shaky, can we fix it for you? You can't do that. And so it's better to take it smooth in the first place. If someone is holding it and they're going to pan, just ask them, make sure when you pan to pan really slowly, because they might want to show what the whole class is doing in an activity, and you don't want to be any faster than this. This is like as fast as you would go. Same applies to zooming in and zooming out. Don't go fast, because it makes people seasick. If you're going really quick on those things, it just looks really amateurish. So be careful with that. Let's see, other common things. What we're most concerned about is the interaction that you have with the students. So it doesn't matter if Stacy mentioned that she wasn't in the shot. That's not the end of the world. But if you can't hear Stacy, then you don't know what's happening. So that is the end of the world. Maybe not the end of the world, but you want to avoid that. If you can get a shot, see, I'm walking in and out. I don't know how this is going to turn out with this shot, but you know that I'm here because I'm talking. I haven't had much interaction with you. I am failing the edTPA right now. And so this is not going to work very well. But I can see how you're reacting to me. I can see if you're engaged or not. I can see if you're nodding your heads, because I can see your heads, and it's not just the back of your head. And so that's something to look for. Other things, yes?
So it wouldn't be possible to like have a separate microphone or something and then put that sound into the video?
You can.
Like if I recorded myself on my phone and then I could put that like over the video sound if it wasn't high quality?
Yeah, you can use an external mic and sync those if you would like.
Okay.
The caution with that is video, just by being in the room, is going to change the dynamic in the classroom, right? So kids are going to perform for the video. That's another reason to do as Stacy suggests, and videotype several times before your actual video, so kids get used to it. I had a 5th grade class I worked with once, and I was told that they would just get used to it. And the truth is, they never...
I videoed for a whole week and they don't get used to it, so...
I did it for a year, and they get more used to it. We did every class for a year, and the first 2 to 3 weeks, they're performed for the video, right? So if you have elementary school kids, they're going to get in front and be like doing this and photobombing as you're filming someone else. That's going to happen for a while. After a few days, they get more used to it, but they're still aware of it. It takes several months till they really zone it out, and I don't think they ever completely get there. When you bring in an external microphone, that magnifies the presence of the camera in the room, because there's another thing there, and people perform a little bit differently when you have those kinds of props. So use it if you feel you have to, but don't if you don't. Yes?
If your school has a lot of technology to use, you can try to use a boom mic. You plug that into the iPad, it enhances whoever's voice is speaking. So it's not an external microphone, you use it at the front.
Yeah, and the boom mic essentially does what you could do editing anyways by just amplifying the volume, but it's usually a little cleaner with less white noise. So absolutely you can use that, and we've ordered a few of those to plug into iPhones and iPads. Who knows when they'll arrive, but check with us because we might have a few mics that you can plug in as well. If you wanted to get your own, there's cheap ones for iPhones that you can get them for 20, 30 bucks. So it's not the end of the world if you think you want to invest in something like that.
The other thing Tyler talked about, it's a 15-minute clip. You look at your own handbooks because it could be a little different. That's kind of the general rule of thumb. This group right here, they know they got a music handbook. It was a little different, so make sure you're looking at your handbooks.
Okay, yes?
So by 15 minutes, can it be, like if you had 3 5-minute chunks you want to show, can you splice them together or does it have to be continuous?
It doesn't have to be continuous, but one, you can only do 2, not 3. And with the 2 that you have, it can be separate. Remind me, Stacy, it's the same unit, but it can be separate parts of that unit?
The only thing that, if you were officially submitting to Pearson, is if something happened where the video stopped, but you picked it up right there, you know, if you had to, you could do that. Pearson would even allow it. But they'd rather have, if you're going to use 2 videos, one continuous video with no stops and starts, and another one with no stops and starts. They don't want 2 minutes of this and then 2 minutes of this, and then that's not what they want. But if something happened,
Yeah.
you could do that.
But it can be separate days because we're doing.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Okay. Yes?
This might be for you or you, I don't know. What if you have, like, so these students that are performing for the camera, like you have this really great chunk that you want to show, but in the middle of it a kid's making a face?
No problem.
That's okay.
Like, that's not like, oh, you're a bad teacher because your kids make faces.
And in, you know, I mean, even, and in fact, if you can talk about that student in your commentary
Okay.
and talk about, you know, strategies, that's great too, but you don't have to. There's an
Because
understanding.
like in a normal day, like that distraction isn't going to be there. Okay.
I have a question off of her video. So you have this happening in the middle. So what if she did the first chunk and then didn't have that part and then the second? Can you have 2 from the same lesson with like that?
You can.
Because it's rather distracting. It's rather
Well,
inappropriate, actually.
The issue that you would have there, if you're taking 2 things from the same lesson but you're missing a 10 to 15 second chunk, then that just
it's
throws
not
off the
10 or 15
continuousness of it.
seconds. It's,
If it's bigger, then yeah, you could absolutely do that.
Okay.
But I wouldn't, every class is going to have stuff. I was teaching at a middle school this morning, and I had a kid completely in the middle of my presentation conk over and hit the desk loud enough that everybody looked at him. Does that mean I'm a bad teacher? No, that was one of 600 kids that fell asleep, and that's normal, you know? So don't worry about that stuff. Other questions? These are good questions. Yes?
And for the when we're videotaping, it doesn't have to be like, you always have to take the start of a lesson. Like if there's a really good chunk halfway through that you're like, this 5-minute range right here is awesome because X, Y, and Z, then you don't have to necessarily have everything lead up to it.
Yeah, very few of you will start at the beginning of the lesson, I'm guessing. Just because you're going to be teaching for a long time, you want the best stuff. So that's totally fine. In the editing process, it's going to, because of that, you need to give the context, right? So as you're writing your commentary, you need to explain what you were doing before and why it's starting at this particular moment. And that will be important because the video will start abruptly because you're not editing it at all. You're not going to fade in or anything like that. It's just going to start wherever you're at. So you need to provide some context for whoever's reviewing your edTPA. Good question. If there are other questions, I want to talk to you a little bit about the actual editing process and what you can do and the easy stuff for getting it from your camera to the computer. So we'll take the video that I've been shooting and we'll use it for our edTPA.